everyone, Chris here from Realridesharestories. On this channel we do a lot of different things within the rideshare industry, so if you're new here, make sure you hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. Also, make sure you give a good thumbs up for this video. But before we get started, if you have a crazy Uber or Lyft experience, whether you're a passenger or a driver, record it, send it my way, and maybe we can feature you on the channel. Alright, so, as the title says, is Uber and Lyft scamming passengers and drivers during surge pricing? So we're going to be talking about this. One of the big things I cover on this channel is a lot of times with passenger scams, but this time we're actually covering, is Uber and Lyft scamming both passengers and drivers? Now, the argument can be made, yes, they're trying to nickel and dime drivers as much as they can, meaning they're trying to find ways to lower rates, to give less to drivers, to make more money, more profits for their investors, for themselves, whatever it might be. But that's one of the big arguments that's happening that you see from drivers all around. But I was scouring the internet, checking out some different articles, and seeing some things within the news of Uber and Lyft. And this article really caught my eye. This is, I don't even know how to say the name of the website, but it's Jalopnik. I think Jalopnik, I don't know, .com. If anybody knows how to say it, let me know. But yeah, one of the articles popped up that came out that I saw yesterday, and it said, "We think Uber and Lyft's new surge fares screw drivers and riders. Help us prove it." So I came across this and I read it, and it was a pretty good article. It talked about a lot different things within the surge, how it changed from what it used to be with the multiplier to what it is now in many markets, which is the flat rate surge. Certain markets still do have the multiplier, the old way. More smaller markets, newer markets, they have that multiplier versus the flat fee. So I'm going to read a little bit of the article. It's a pretty long article. I'm going to leave a link in the description below, though, so you can check it out. All right, one of the big things is they're trying to prove to see if there is a way where Uber and Lyft is manipulating surge prices to both the passenger and the driver, where they're collecting more of the fare versus giving it to the driver like it's supposed to be, and then manipulating it with this flat rate surge to multiplier. So they're asking for help. So I'm kind of trying to spread the word to see if people want to do this and kind of share their experiences, but also comment below and let me know what you think. Have you noticed a difference between flat rate surge versus the multiplier? If so, give a little explanation on what's going on with you, and let me know in the comments section below. But yeah, let's get going on the actual article, what they're kind of doing and what you can do as a driver or a passenger who's kind of paying attention to this as well. So Uber changed how its surge pricing works last year. Again, not all markets cover or fall under this. There is still areas that do have the multiplier surge, but several markets have this flat rate surge. So when surge happens, you'll see like a $3 or like a $6, whatever it might be, any variation, and that's the flat rate you'll get essentially for surge as a driver. For passengers, it's still a little different, so I'm going to kind of cover that. It does do a good job within the article. So Uber changed how its surge pricing works last year, not for riders, right there, but for drivers. So what that means is riders are still paying a multiplier surge price when the flat rate surge price is what's given to drivers. So right off the bat, you kind of see there's a little problem right there. And again, this is last year's knowledge, but they're trying to figure this out and see if drivers and passengers are kind of getting scammed and screwed out of money or paying too much money. So it's definitely something that you want to pay attention to. The changes have resulted in drivers earning less from surge pricing, but riders are still paying the same inflated costs, with Uber pocketing the difference. We had heard from drivers that this was a big blow to their already precarious income. So a little over a month ago, we asked Uber drivers to send us screenshots of their surge fare to find out the extent of the pay cut. We received hundreds of responses, many of which included masses of desperation and anger at the unilateral price change from the ride-hailing giant, as well as pity for riders who are, as one driver from Phoenix put it, subject to egregious price gouging. Sorry. Surge pricing goes into effect when Uber's algorithm determines there's more demand for rides than drivers available. The company increases fares through what the company calls a multiplier, and the larger the multiplier, the higher the fare. So we all know that. So if you're a passenger and you see a high fare for what a normal ride is, it's because it's surge. There's a lot of things going on. Maybe a concert or a couple concerts let out in that area. You know, the bars are closing in the specific bar district. You know, you could be going out to a game where there's 18, 20, 70, 60,000 people that are exiting at the same time. So you're going to notice in real time, there's not enough drivers. So it's real time supply and demand here. And it was very controversial when surge was applied, because it was real-time surge pricing. So they thought that, oh, people are just manipulating the price and it can fluctuate and change at any time. That's not really the case. It is more of a supply and demand issue. And the big thing is, it is instant. So that is something that most people don't realize. The only other thing that kind of falls under a supply and demand price fluctuation, but not nearly as instant, would be like, say, gas prices. Something happens somewhere and you see gas prices rise, and then all of a sudden they start falling slower and slower and slower. But that's the price, the supply and demand issues, and there's a whole complication. But this is real time, because in actual specific areas, whether it be an area that a driver, there's maybe like just a few drivers and a lot of passengers looking for rides. So that's kind of how surge started. And it was just something that happened. It was great for drivers because they could make some money on the multiplier if it was going like, 2, 3, 4 times, sometimes even higher depending on what was going on. But yeah, it was pretty good. But yeah, that's how surge was. And then they changed to that flat rate where now it showed like a dollar sign in different areas. Obviously, the higher the flat rate dollar sign, the more surge. But here's the difference. That changed on the driver end, but it didn't change on the passenger end. So they're still paying the multiplier rate as a passenger instead of paying a flat rate or something like that, where the driver gets a flat rate surge priced fee when it's a surge. So yeah, there's a few issues with that, and things talk about changing prices all the time. Are they nickel and diming drivers even more, trying to cash in more money? Who knows? But several dozen drivers interviewed for this story nearly unanimously confirmed the 50-50 split as typical during surge periods under the new structure. A spokesman for Uber disputed these findings. Uber said that 175 fares isn't enough to draw conclusions from. Given millions of trips take place every day in the U.S., 175 ride receipts is not a meaningful sample size, and a 47-53 split is simply not representative of what we currently see on our platform. So that is directly from Uber spokesperson, what they said. And in this article, they say right in the next thing, Uber is right that 175 fares is not a meaningful sample considering the scope of the company's business. But Uber refused to make anyone from the company available for an interview to discuss in detail how the new pricing model works. Short any raw fare data with them, or provide any further information on the company's take rate beyond what it discloses to regulators, which indicates that it takes a take rate closer to 20%. So now here, going a little bit into this, is they're talking about how Uber is saying that 175 samples is not a good sample size, which that's true. It's flat out says in there. And this is where you as drivers can come in and help. But I'll get to that in a second. So it's saying that they also refused to provide any type of data, anything to this website for further investigation, to be able to come up with a determination that this 47-53 or 50-50 split, meaning Uber is taking 50% and the driver gets 50%, but they're actually saying Uber is stating to regulators that it's closer to 20% of their take. So that means the driver would be getting still around 80%. So that is showing a little bit of discrepancy. Even though when you do 175 rides, it is a small sample size, but over time, if you can build that up, you can get a better determination of what's actually happening with that. So this is kind of the reason why I want to make this video as well on top of it. So basically, this website wants to collect more data, and a lot more. Now, they didn't get a hold of me for this, nothing like that. I just came across this article and thought it was a good way for somebody who's investigating this, again, on something where if drivers are getting screwed out of surge pricing while passengers are still paying that multiplier price. So this is why they're launching fares.jalopnik, like I said, I don't know what it is, .com. So we want to learn more about how Uber and Lyft, the latter of which was not part of the initial investigation, but has since made similar changes to prime time as Uber did to surge pricing. So it's split their revenue with their workers. So most of all this was done with Uber. Lyft was not put into this yet. I'm sure now they're going to collect the data on it and figure it out. But yes, you can go to a website and share screenshots. They also talk about how they're going to protect your data and things like that from the screenshots and all that, which you can read in the article. I'm not going to go into it. But yeah, if you want, you can go to fares.jalopnik.com. I'll put it right here, and then also a link in the description below if you want to help share your information to see if drivers are actually getting screwed, even more so while passengers are also still getting screwed on top of it. So yeah, there's quite a few things in that aspect. All right, so yeah, using a quick form at this website, drivers can anonymously submit their information about recent fares, including how much the rider paid, how much the driver got paid, and how much the company has pocketed. They're going to use that information to dig deeper into Uber and Lyft's take rate. The form does not ask for any personal information, and it asks drivers to round amounts to the nearest dollar to nominalize each fare. However, they do require each fare to be accompanied by a screenshot to verify. After verification, the screenshot is deleted. Drivers can read more about that by going to the website and clicking on About in the upper right corner. So you can do that. Another couple of things that they kind of talk about is the difference between employees and independent contractors, and they just talk about it very slightly. But one of the points that they do raise is they say under current U.S. law, drivers are unable to collectively bargain because they are technically independent contractors, not employees. But they are also unable to set their own prices, unlike independent contractors in nearly any other industry. So now this is that gray area of are drivers really getting screwed, or are they really independent contractors? And, you know, if you go to anywhere, you know, if you're a independent contractor who's building a house, you know, you go in and you put in your bid for that, what work you want to do, or if you're the general contractor, you have other contractors come in and put bids in, and then whoever gets it takes that, or gets that job. And it's many other things, you know. If you go on to Fiverr.com for certain things, whether it be for your business or animations or different things like that, where those people are freelancers or independent contractors, you know, they're setting their own price, they're setting certain rules, they're setting certain things up. But with Uber and Lyft, as a driver, you just have to agree to these terms, and that's it. You can't, you know, say anything more. So that's one of the issues too, that I saw on here, and I'm like, oh wow, that really hits it. So let me just go through and see if there's anything more. All right. Oh yeah, there was a Utah driver on a forum quoted by researcher Alex Rosenblatt in her book, Uberland, How Algorithms Are Rewriting the Rules of Work. And this is a little excerpt from that. And it says, "This is the scam Uber is playing, calling us contractors when we're obviously not. If you are a painting contractor, do you accept a job without knowing what it is or how much it pays? Of course not. But this is exactly what Uber is doing to us. Like telling the painting contractor, you have a job for him, but he has to accept it before he knows what it is. Paint the whole house for $50, and you, the contractor, have to supply the paint. You tell them to go pound salt. The paint alone costs more than $50. Then the painting contractor is told he already accepted the job, and if he cancels, he'll never work in this town again." So that's a little excerpt from that, and it kind of puts it into a different sense, which is very true. You know, they've often tinkered with their respective pricing, talking about Uber and Lyft, with their algorithms. The change to how surge pricing works particularly noteworthy because it undercuts the logic both companies use to justify it already. And essentially, it was originally, like I said, supply and demand. You know, more passengers needed rides, no drivers in the area. It enticed drivers to come on or go in that area, and, you know, get a better fare for, even if it was a short ride. If it was normally a $3 ride, you know, if you had a three-time multiplier, you know, you were making $9, $10 or whatever it might be. So it was, like I said, controversial at the beginning, but it was great for drivers, and it was that real time. Yes, don't chase surge. We all know that. It's just dumb, but if you pop up in a surge area after a ride ends, that's great news. Sometimes, not always. But yeah, there's changes now because it went to this flat rate pricing. And it's tiered depending on where or how in depth things are. So if the normal surge multiplier, let's say, was 3 times, you know, now it might be a little bit higher on the flat rate, but the passenger is still paying a 3-time multiplier. So they're still paying multiplier rates, and drivers are getting paid at flat rates. So it's a little bit different and a little weird there. So that's why when I came across this article, like I said, I really want to get it out to you guys. So if you wanted to help out and kind of bump up that 175 fares to a higher sample size, so they can go to Uber and Lyft, or even the regulators that they have to stay in contact with, they can show that information. And, you know, now maybe you have certain regulators come in and say, look, you can't do that, you got to change things. Either putting more money back in drivers' pockets or changing the way they pay for rides from passengers. So there's a few different ways to go there. The entire idea of surge pricing is that the free market principles of supply and demand could be harnessed in a dynamic pricing model to better serve both riders and drivers. You know, it talks about that. just want to, this is a long article, like I said. There's parts that I don't want to read in. They do then go into about a few different ways how surge works, how people have reached out to them. So like one driver from Washington, D.C. said the change has had the opposite effect. Because of this new surge policy, the driver wrote in an email, "I rarely drive during surge conditions because it's not worth the traffic, risk of puke, etc. The extra couple of bucks they make per surge trip is further counterbalanced by the fact that riders often tip less on surge trips, if at all, under the assumption drivers are making bank on the surge pricing." Another driver from LA observed the change in the surge model hurts drivers most the higher the surge is, meaning drivers are now missing out on the occasional massive paydays they might get during extreme surges. Sometimes Uber will kick an extra bucks to the driver on longer, more expensive surge trips, but the algorithmic logic behind this additional pay is opaque, and it still pales in comparison to what drivers used to make under the old model. For their part, drivers who ask Uber for more information on how pricing works are typically told any pricing algorithm information is proprietary by customer support or representatives at driver support centers, or given the runaround by support personnel in the app. "I see this as a scam that Uber is perpetuating on the riders," the LA driver continued. "If they know they can get enough driver coverage at the time of high demand for, say, an extra $10, then why are they charging the rider hundreds of dollars more for that surge price? How can they possibly justify that?" So that was a quote from an LA driver. Again, if you want to read the whole article, I highly suggest doing that. It's a great article, and they're really doing something to see what Uber and Lyft are doing with their surge pricing, both for drivers and passengers, because there is that discrepancy where they're still paying that multiplier rate versus a flat rate. So, and again, also, lastly, if you want to submit your fares with surge pricing, go to fares.jalopnik.com. Again, I'll leave a link in the description below so you guys can help share that information. And any other drivers you know out there, make sure you do that, just because it's pretty crazy. So with that being said, though, that is the end of today's video. Again, go check out that website, check out the article, and the fares.jalopnik.com or whatever it is. So if you want to help give them a little bit more information to help increase that sample size to make it more deterministic, that would be cool. If not, hey, well, we gotta do some more research and more digging, because here's the bottom line. Uber and Lyft are trying to nickel and dime drivers because that's their biggest expense, meaning they want more money for their investors, or investors are telling them that they need more profit or whatever it might be. So they're trying to shrink driver pricing as far as it can go. And you know, Uber has came out and said that drivers are not going to like what Uber and Lyft are doing, more so from Uber itself. So they're not going to enjoy what Uber is doing, and piss a lot of drivers off, which is a problem. So, you know, there's certain things that are happening, you know, with the with the introduction of AB5 in California state legislator, you know, that minimum wage law in New York City. There's a lot of things that are kind of popping up that are adjusting. So that means Uber and Lyft are going to have to adjust one way or the other. And, you know, drivers are kind of caught in the middle of all this. So the only thing we can do is keep checking, keep watching, and then look for different articles like this who are actually doing investigations into, you know, certain things that are going on within Uber and Lyft, within driver pay, and within passenger rates as well. So if you guys had any other questions, make sure to comment below. Also, if you noticed anything different from the multiplier surge to the flat rate surge, or if you've noticed less surge altogether, you know, comment below, let me know what you think, what has happened. If you want to put a well, no, you can't put a screenshot in, I'm sorry, you can't do a screenshot in the comments, but you can talk about it. So if you want to talk about it, by all means, please put it down there. Go check over the website, whatever you want to do. But whatever it is, it'll always help. So, all right, guys, if you haven't hit that subscribe button yet, make sure you do. Also, ring the bell for notifications so you'll be notified every time a new video is uploaded. Also, please give a good thumbs up for this video. And lastly, as always, never drink and drive, always tip your drivers, and we'll see you next time.